Imagine stepping into the ring with a man who doesn't know how to stop. A man whose every movement is fueled by the one thing he's built his entire life around: relentless pressure. Joe Frazier didn't just fight to win, he fought to break you. Round after round, punch after punishing punch, he chased you, cornered you, and made you face the one truth you couldn't escape. There was no escape from him. Not for 15 rounds, not for 1 second. This wasn't a man born with extraordinary gifts, no. Joe Frazier was forged in the hardest conditions imaginable, and his training turned him into the relentless war machine that crushed champions like Ali, Ellis, and Quarry. His weapon wasn't just his left hook. It was his will to keep coming, no matter how much pain he was in. How did Joe Frazier train to become this force of nature? To become the fighter who never stopped? To become the man who could break you not with a punch, but with an unyielding, relentless pressure? Welcome to Back to Boxing. Joe Frazier's journey to boxing greatness began in the segregated South, where he was born the 12th of 13 children. Working alongside his family in the fields from the age of 7, young Joe developed the physical toughness and work ethic that would define his later career. At age 15, Frazier watched with fascination as a young Cassius Clay won gold at the 1960 Olympics in Rome. Inspired, Joe moved north to Philadelphia, a city that would shape his boxing identity as thoroughly as his southern roots had shaped his character. Philadelphia in the 1960s was a proving ground that produced some of boxing's toughest fighters. In the gritty gyms of North Philly, a distinctive style was forged, one that emphasized constant pressure, inside fighting, and a willingness to absorb punishment to deliver it. The Philadelphia fighter became synonymous with toughness, and Joe Frazier would become its greatest ambassador. Under the tutelage of Yancey "Yank" Durham at the Cloverleigh Gym, Frazier's natural attributes were honed into weapons. What many don't know is that as a child, Frazier had severely injured his left arm in a fall. The injury never properly healed, leaving him unable to fully straighten the limb. This limitation became a blessing in disguise, as it forced him to develop a compact, devastating left hook thrown with a slight upward trajectory, a punch that would become his signature weapon. Durham recognized something special in the stocky, determined youngster. "This boy," he'd tell anyone who would listen, "doesn't know the meaning of the word quit." And he would need every ounce of that determination for the training regimen that would transform him from an ambitious amateur into a world champion. The brutal training methodology. Joe Frazier didn't have cutting-edge sports science or a team of recovery experts behind him. What he had was grit and a work ethic built on 3 hard truths. Train harder than anyone, build real-world strength, and make your body feel what a 15-round war actually takes, day after day. His training wasn't flashy, but it was brutally effective. It started early, 4:30 a.m., before the sun came up. He'd hit the streets of Philadelphia for a 5-mile run, often in heavy boots to build power in his legs. And this wasn't a smooth jog through flat streets. Frazier made sure to include steep hills, especially the incline at Hunting Park. In the dead of winter, when snow was knee-deep, he ran anyway. Pain was part of the process. Next stop, the slaughterhouse. There, he'd hammer away at hanging sides of beef, a method that would later become famous in Rocky, but for Frazier, it was just another tool to build real punching power. The weight and resistance of those carcasses helped forge the explosive hooks he was feared for. By late morning, he'd be in the gym, grinding through a punishing 3-hour session. 12 rounds on the heavy bag, 8 rounds on the speed bag, 10 rounds of sparring, often with multiple fresh sparring partners. Hundreds of sit-ups and push-ups, 30 minutes of non-stop jump rope. But that wasn't the end of his day. After a brief lunch, Frazier would return to the gym for an afternoon session focused on strength training. At a time when many fighters believed weightlifting could make them muscle-bound and slow, Frazier understood the importance of building strength to support his brutal style. His focus was on exercises that reinforced his neck, shoulders, and core, the power centers of his relentless assault. These exercises helped Frazier build the foundation for his punishing hooks and his ability to take punches without slowing down. In the evenings, Frazier would often put in another 3 to 5 miles of road work, cementing his cardiovascular endurance and ensuring that his legs would carry him through a fight that could go the distance. On any given day, Frazier's training could span 6 to 8 hours, and he would repeat this grueling schedule 6 days a week. There were no days off. There was no room for comfort. Only an unyielding drive to become the hardest, most relentless fighter in the world. Developing the pressure style. Joe Frazier's fighting style wasn't just a product of his physical training. It was a philosophy cultivated through specific drills and mindset development. At 5'11" and roughly 205 pounds, Frazier was small for a heavyweight of his era. Rather than trying to outbox taller opponents from the outside, Frazier and his trainers developed a style that neutralized his disadvantages and maximized his strengths. The foundation of this style was constant forward pressure. Frazier rarely took a step backward in his fights, instead cutting off the ring and forcing opponents to the ropes where his devastating bodywork could wear them down. To develop this pressure style, Frazier incorporated several specialized training techniques. The shoe drill, where Frazier practiced slipping punches while moving forward. His trainer would stand in front of him and throw combinations, while Frazier would bob and weave without moving his feet outside of a pair of shoes placed on the canvas. This developed his ability to move his upper body independently from his lower body, a skill crucial for a pressure fighter who can't afford to retreat. Corner work, where Frazier would be placed in the corner while multiple sparring partners took turns attacking him. He wasn't allowed to escape the corner, forcing him to defend, counter, and work inside, simulating the worst-case scenarios he might face in competition. Frazier also trained extensively with what his camp called the diving board drill. A heavy bag would be suspended in such a way that it swung back aggressively when hit. Frazier would practice slipping the returning bag while continuing to press forward and throw combinations, teaching him to maintain pressure even when facing return fire. Yank Durham would often place small targets on the heavy bag, forcing Frazier to be precise with his hooks even while applying relentless pressure. This combination of aggression and accuracy made Frazier's inside work particularly devastating. Perhaps most importantly, Frazier spent countless hours developing his signature punch, the left hook to the body followed immediately by the left hook to the head. This combination, thrown while moving slightly to his right, became his money punch, allowing him to neutralize an opponent's right hand while delivering maximum power, building superhuman endurance. What truly set Joe Frazier apart wasn't just his power, it was his bottomless gas tank. His pressure-fighting style demanded the ability to keep throwing punches, round after round, without ever letting up. To build this, Frazier went far beyond the usual roadwork. His trainer used a simple but brutal system. A bell rang every 3 minutes, like a fight round, with 1-minute rests. No matter what Frazier was doing, when the bell rang, he'd drop everything and shadow box or simulate fighting for 3 minutes straight, then rest for 1. This trained his body to fight on command, with intensity, under fatigue, and without excuses. He also turned to swimming, something he wasn't good at initially, to boost lung capacity and build endurance without stress on the joints. Many sessions involved underwater drills, forcing him to push his limits before surfacing for air. His sparring was next level. While most fighters sparred 4 to 6 rounds, Frazier regularly pushed through 12 to 15 against fresh opponents. It taught him how to conserve energy while still applying pressure, a crucial edge in his wars with Ali. Then there was his boiler room drill. In a basement where temperatures topped 100 degrees, Frazier would shadow box and do calisthenics for up to an hour, conditioning himself to fight under suffocating lights in packed arenas. By fight night, Frazier didn't just have stamina. He was built to get stronger as the war went on, just as his opponents started to fade. Mental toughness and pain tolerance. Beyond the physical attributes, what truly set Joe Frazier apart was his extraordinary mental toughness and ability to absorb punishment. This wasn't just a natural trait, it was systematically developed through his training. Frazier's sparring sessions often resembled actual fights in their intensity. Unlike many champions who use sparring primarily for timing and technique, Frazier approached these sessions as war preparation. His sparring partners were instructed not to take it easy on him, and he would often continue sessions despite cuts, bruises, or fatigue. Durham and later Eddie Futch, who joined Frazier's corner for his biggest fights, understood that mental fortitude couldn't be taught through lectures. It had to be forged through experience. They deliberately placed Frazier in uncomfortable situations during training, working when exhausted, continuing through pain, and facing adversity without retreat. One notorious training method involved having assistant trainers shout insults and distractions while Frazier worked, simulating hostile crowds and trash-talking opponents. This prepared him for the psychological warfare he would face against Muhammad Ali. Frazier developed what sports psychologists now call pain redefinition, the ability to reinterpret pain signals not as warnings to stop, but as confirmation of effective work. Pain is just weakness leaving the body, Frazier would say, echoing the mindset that carried him through his most punishing fights. This mental conditioning was evident in his historic first fight with Ali, where despite absorbing tremendous punishment, Frazier never stopped pressing forward. His team had prepared him for exactly this scenario, the ability to walk through fire to impose his will. As Frazier himself put it, "You can map out a fight plan or a life plan, but when the action starts, you're down to your reflexes. That's where your roadwork shows. If you cheated on that in the dark of the morning, you're getting found out now under the bright lights." Training for Ali in iconic battles. Frazier's training hit its zenith as he prepared for his trilogy against Muhammad Ali, the defining rivalry of his career. The first clash, the 1971 fight of the century, was a cultural and sporting juggernaut. To face Ali's speed, jab, and psychological warfare, Frazier's camp tailored his regimen. His 5-mile runs stretched to 7 miles, with hill sprints to mimic chasing Ali's elusive footwork. Heavy bag sessions focused on body shots to slow Ali's movement. Sparring partners, chosen for their height and speed, imitated Ali's style, forcing Frazier to close the distance under fire. Mental preparation was key. Ali's taunts, calling Frazier an Uncle Tom and mocking his style, stung deeply. Frazier channeled the anger into focus, visualizing Ali's defeat during shadowboxing. On March 8, 1971, at Madison Square Garden, Frazier delivered. His relentless pressure overwhelmed Ali, culminating in a 15th-round knockdown with a left hook. The unanimous decision victory made Frazier the undisputed heavyweight champion, a title he'd held since defeating Jimmy Ellis in 1970. For their 1974 rematch, Frazier refined his approach under Eddie Futch, who'd taken over after Yank Durham's death in 1973. Futch emphasized slipping Ali's jab and targeting his midsection. Though Frazier lost a unanimous decision, he landed punishing shots, proving his style remained a threat. The 1975 Thriller in Manila was their brutal finale. Training in intense heat to simulate Manila's climate, Frazier pushed his cardio to new limits, running 8 miles daily and sparring 15 rounds straight. In the fight, he absorbed horrific punishment, his eyes nearly swollen shut by the 14th round. Futch stopped the bout, but Frazier's courage left Ali calling it the closest thing to dying. That performance cemented Frazier's legend. Frazier's preparation for other foes, like George Foreman in 1973, followed a similar blueprint but couldn't overcome Foreman's size and power. Yet his ability to adapt, lengthening runs, intensifying sparring, refining head movement, showed his training's versatility. Conclusion. Joe Frazier's approach to training and fighting represents a blueprint not just for boxing success, but for achievement in any demanding field. His methods weren't revolutionary, they were evolutionary, taking traditional boxing wisdom to its logical extreme through sheer determination and work volume. What made Frazier special wasn't secret techniques or physical gifts, but his willingness to push beyond normal human limitations day after day, year after year. He understood that greatness isn't born from comfort, but forged through consistent, deliberate discomfort. In an era of increasing sports specialization and scientific training methods, Frazier's old-school approach reminds us of fundamental truths. There are no shortcuts to excellence. Pain is an inevitable companion on the path to greatness, and the strongest weapon in any fighter's arsenal isn't found in their fists, but in their heart. Joe Frazier didn't just train to become a champion, he trained to become a force of nature. A relentless, unstoppable pressure fighter whose will could break opponents as surely as his left hook could. In doing so, he left behind not just a legacy of memorable fights, but a testament to the extraordinary heights the human spirit can reach when tested by fire. In boxing, they say styles make fights, but before styles enter the ring, they're formed in the gym, on the roads, and in the mind. Smokin Joe Frazier's style, that relentless swarming pressure, wasn't just his nature. It was carefully constructed through thousands of hours of brutal, dedicated work. And that work transformed a sharecropper's son with a crooked arm into one of the greatest heavyweight champions who ever lived. Let me know what do you think about this in comments. Thank you for watching Back to Boxing.